Hey there, are you grieving the potential loss of a loved one or feeling overwhelmed with the loss of someone you care about? If so, you're in the right place. Lisa Hartung here, and this podcast is designed to guide you through topics surrounding death and dying. We'll dive into multifaceted aspects of grief, offering you a blend of personal stories, expert insights, and practical advice for your grief journey. May this be a safe space for you to learn, listen, and ask questions about your own life and loved ones. So grab your favorite beverage and let's dive in. Welcome back, everyone. Happy 2026. Oh my goodness. I hope you had a happy and safe New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. I know that this is kind of can be a really hard transition. I talked about this last episode. Some people say new year, new you. And so I like to think of New Year's as a new opportunity to honor our loved ones that have gone before and really celebrate the people who are still with us. And so know that I am thinking of all of you as we head into the new year. Super excited for you to come along this journey. Know that I'm here for you. I'm super excited today to welcome our guest, Jacqueline van Bierk. She is a singer-songwriter, music producer, YouTuber. She's the host of Her Gypsy Revel podcast. She's also an ancient yoga teacher, a cool transformational coach. Jacqueline's one of those people that just makes you smile. She grew up in East Germany. She escaped communism as a teenager, and that really shaped her experience and her lifelong pursuit of freedom, really creative expression, living her dreams. Jacqueline is now based in the US and she's a rock star, literally. She has performed with a band and solo. She's performed at all of the venues on the Sunset Strip and she was part of Warped Tour. She's also created music in shows such as Catfish and Ink Master, and also featured on Discovery and History channels. So pretty awesome there. Jacqueline now lives a really cool minimalist RV lifestyle with her awesome dog, Bolt. She continues helping people heal and inspire them through music and storytelling and creating community. So one thing that's really exciting about the month of January is that Jacqueline is offering a 30-day Rebel Reset Declutter Challenge. So it's not too late to sign up and you'll get daily emails. Everyone will meet as a group on Sundays. So I'll make sure to put all of that information in the show notes. I really enjoyed working with Jacqueline. She's also a special part of Giving Grief Grace because she is our podcast editor. So thank you so much for all that you do, Jacqueline. And I'm so excited to talk with you today about your journey, your experience with your mom and the loss of your dad and the loss of your mom's second partner as well. And so thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing your light with the world in so many different ways. You are a gift. So without further ado, please welcome Jacqueline van Bierk to this week's episode of Giving Grief Grace. All right. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Super excited to have Jacqueline van Bierk here. Jacqueline, you have such an incredible story and you are just such a light in this world. So I'm so grateful for you for taking the time to come on and share about your experience. You have just such a journey that you've been on. I would love maybe if we could start out by you sharing a little bit about your experience as a teen and then we can jump in.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor because I love what you're doing. My journey. Oh God, there's so many chapters. As a teenager, I grew up in a small town in East Germany. From a young age, I always would just look at the stars and be like, oh, I just want to travel the world. I want to see the world. I want to be a big star. My dad was a musician, so he would play in a band and I would watch him rehearse. And then when they would take a break, I would sneak up on stage and like, take the mic and just pretend this is my band that I'm rehearsing. My mom was working in the same restaurant. She was a manager and a waitress, all of it. It wasn't always the nicest home, because they had a lot of issues. So part of me was always kind of like, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to get out of here. And it makes sense looking back now that I'm such a gypsy because I never felt home in my home. I was always hoping to have a nice, harmonious, loving home, which my parents loved me. They did the best they could, but they were both, my mom was super young. My dad was a little older and he came from another marriage. So there was all that drama going on and never met my grandparents on my dad's side. I was still a happy kid. I would still find ways to be happy, be out and about in nature. But I always dreamed about seeing the world, traveling the world. As I became a little older, in East Germany, was a communist country. I would just always think about, something is wrong here. Like I can travel. I would ask questions and that was not welcomed, So it's funny when people these days say like, we want communism, socialism. It sounds great on paper, but it doesn't really work. In East Germany, you couldn't just go to, wherever, France, Italy. There were a few, like you could go to Poland, you could go to Czechoslovakia, the Eastern Bloc. But even then you needed a visa. They were like really very controlling, like making sure that, they knew every step you were taking. And so we went to Hungary, and people that were visiting there, they started to escape to Austria, like the border, and we were trying to do the same thing. I was still was a teenager. We got sent back. We had an address and everything, and we rolled up, showing that these soldiers like pulled up with their guns, and they were like, where are you going? We're like, oh, we're just visiting somebody over there. No. They knew. They were like, no, you can't go here. You have to go back. And I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to be stuck here. I'm just going to be stuck. And then I saw people on TV just escaping. And I was like, how can I get out of here? I was always imagining people that would come from West Germany. I lived right across from a police station. And they would have to park their cars there to register. And I would look in their cars and be like, oh my God, look at that Bravo magazine. It was like all these magazines we had no access to. Like about music and fashion and, lifestyle. And I would be like, maybe you can get in a trunk and they can smuggle me over. It was just so funny. I always visualized that. But then the day came where my then boyfriend's dad said, you know what, guys, you're young. Tonight, I'm going to take you to Berlin. You're going to take the train to Prague. You're going to go to the embassy. The embassy is filling up. People are escaping and take your chance. So I told my parents. Well, my dad was just like, no, I'm gonna report you. So of course he didn't. But yeah, I didn't know if I ever gonna see my parents again. I just knew I had to go. This is my chance. So we did. My parents were we were all crying because I didn't know if I'm gonna get shot, if I'm gonna get arrested. We took the train to Berlin. That was okay. And then from Berlin to Prague, the people in the train, I don't know, they were, I think, police, and they were just checking out everything, my luggage, my ID and everything. And we didn't bring anything. We didn't bring any, I wasn't that old yet to have all these papers from whatever, but it was just crazy. And we didn't talk to anybody because we're like, oh, this person could be Stasi, could be like, it's like CIA kind of like from Germany. They were just controlling and making sure everybody's following orders. And we got to Prague, and then like, oh God, now what? And we looked around. Everybody's like, did the same thing. Everybody was so scared, because you didn't know, you couldn't trust anybody. You didn't know who is an undercover spy agent just trying to arrest you, and who is also just wanting to escape. And then we flagged down a cab, and we're like, the embassy to West Germany, not East Germany, West Germany. And it's so funny because last year, I went back to Prague, and I didn't realize until we were in Prague. I said to my mom, oh my God, Prague, the embassy. This is where I escaped. I have to go to the embassy. And every time I would tell the story, I would say that the cab dropped us off, and then we had to go through this park that was so dark, and there were people walking around in suitcases, and I was just like, oh my God, we're going to get shot. I was so scared. Whenever I would tell that story, I'm like, is this really what happened? Or am I just imagining that? So when I went back, oh my God, there's the park. It's true. It was true. We got to the fence. We went through the park, made it. And then people would do the old school, like put your foot here and let us over. And the fence was huge. It was a giant fence.
Oh my
I'm
God.
like, oh my God, I jumped over this fence. And when we drove up there, my mom, we started tearing up. All these memories came back, how scared I was and how happy I was when I was actually over the fence. And these soldiers last year, they came by and they're like, what are you doing here? You can't drive up here. And I'm like, you don't understand. They didn't really care. But that was pretty much crazy because then we were in the embassy and I mean, people with kids, they left everything. They left everything behind, just jumped over for their freedom. A lot of people from East Germany that tried to escape got killed. They got shot because they wanted freedom. They were not criminals. It's heartbreaking when you go to Berlin and you go to that, the checkpoint Charlie, and you see all, what people have tried to escape and how many made it, how many didn't. And also, if you lived in Berlin, you could look over to the other side and you just couldn't go there. No one ever thought that the wall would come down. But after we were there in the embassy for, I think, 4 or 5 nights, I can't remember. And I remember it being so crowded, people fighting over bananas. We had a very short supply in East Germany, bananas, grapefruits, oranges, all that stuff was very rare. And you could only buy a certain amount. And my mom worked at a restaurant. So she would be like, I scratch your back if you scratch mine. Get first dips on new clothing that would come in the, the cool 5 jeans that were like hip. And that's the other reason why I used to go to Hungary, because I would spend all my money on clothes because they had really cool looking, vibrant, colorful clothes. In East Germany, everything looked kind of grayish and boring and ugly. And so we would eat out of tubes. I would make a list of what I want to eat when I come back home because everything was so expensive for us. And all our money would go to clothes. We would just wanted to buy all this fancy looking cool clothes that no one else had. But yeah, so we were in the embassy for 4 nights and people were fighting over all kinds of stuff. It was getting so ridiculous because people would have to wait 3 hours to go to the bathroom. I mean, there were babies, little children. It was crazy. And then Genscher, the then chancellor, came and set us free. And he said, you are now released. The trains will come to pick you up. So stay calm. Everybody gets a seat. Don't worry. You're all going to get safely over to the other side. Yeah. And then shortly after, the wall came down, and then my parents were able to visit me around Christmas. That was like in September when I escaped, and the wall came down. We reunited, but my parents, for the time that we were in the embassy, didn't know we didn't have telephones or anything like that. So they had no idea if I made it, if I'm alive, if I'm good, vice versa. It was crazy.
Like, how was that for you? I think every teenager is dreaming of getting away from their parents, but you not only got away from your parents, but you also got away from life in general. And so how was that being like, I don't know what's on the other side? How did you deal with that?
I think my thirst for freedom, I've always wanted to live in a bigger town. And it's funny now I've been spending a lot of time in a really small town where my mom was like, what happened to the city girl? But I've always dreamed of that. So I felt really happy, especially when I knew my parents could come and see me again and I could go. Yeah. And then I was allowed the year after, or like a few months after, I was allowed to also go back. We were restricted for a while. They were like, no, you can't go back yet. And then it didn't matter. And it was funny because people in my town were like, you could have just waited. I'm like, no, I was part of the revolution. We did it. If we didn't do that, the wall would still be up. Yeah,
you never know.
People started rebel. I mean, and I met so many people that were in East Germany. You could apply for leaving the country. It was a really painful process. You would lose your job. You would lose a lot of friends because you're being considered you're betraying your country, and they want nothing to do with you. You being interrogated, investigated. Once, twice a week, where they will tell you, Lisa, you know what your husband does when you're not around, blah, blah, blah. It just try to pin you up against one another, that kind of stuff. And then also they would let you go eventually, but not your husband, maybe. Oh. So it was really, it's just crazy, how controlling they were just to keep for what? For what? If somebody doesn't want to be in the country, let them go, but they didn't. I met a few people who told me a few of the stories, and they didn't even get into the details. She's like, my friend Tamara, I met her. I lost contact, but she would just burst into tears saying, I can't even tell you what they did to me. But I just tell you that it was painful. And then within 24 hours, they'll tell you, you don't know when, but they'll say, okay, you have 24 hours to get out. It could be 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now. You didn't know that.
You just always had to live with a bag.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So yeah, it felt liberating to me. And looking back, it's like, holy shit, I did it. It felt really accomplished to do that.
And so you got out, and
Mm-hmm.
then later on, you moved to the States.
Yes.
And so that was again a whole nother break free from what you knew, because then you moved to the US. How was that leaving, being oceans away from your parents?
I guess I'm just the gypsy. That's why my brand Gypsy Rebel, it makes so much sense. I met a friend. I would be bartending at a rock club. It was really freaking cool. And I met my friend Sandy, and she was always like, New York, you want to go? And I'm like, yes, let's do it. So we went. And if I tell you the first time I stepped foot on New York ground, I'm like, I'm home. I felt home. I didn't really speak English well. It just felt right. I loved the craziness. I remember just standing like Times Square being like, fuck, am I here? Somebody pinch me. Is this a dream? And
You're
it
coming
was
from East Germany where everything was black
right.
and white.
Yeah. And another interesting fact is the first time I went to a store in West Germany, I bursted into tears because I could not believe that there's so many different colors of nail polish available and
Oh,
lipstick. I was just, it really felt like going from black and white into a world of color, and then going to New York. It felt the world is the stage. Everything is possible. So we went back to Germany, work, make some money, and then go back and stay. So I told my parents that I'm going to stay longer, but I didn't tell them I'm going to stay for good. Yeah.
ah.
And then my time was up, and I just stayed. And my parents were like, well, are you coming back? I'm like, no. And again, we all bursted into tears, but I said, I
Yeah.
want to be here. And
Yeah.
then I had a boyfriend that we got married. I mean, we were like, it was a great relationship, but, we would have probably not getting married if it wasn't for that, but it made sense. That's how my New York life began. I still, to this day, no matter how many times I go back to New York and feel, where is my New York, my old New York? Because everything changes, right? It's just like life.
Yeah.
But there's just the essence of it is still, I feel still like this is my home. I love the vibe. I love the energy. East Coast, It's something about East Coast people that are just more, in my opinion, more real, and just the pace. It feels a bit more European to me, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. But I just loved it, and I started exploring. I started my own band. Me and Sandy actually lived in a hostel for like 7 months. We didn't care. We did not care. We shared the kitchen, the bathrooms. We're like, whatever, we
Yeah.
really lived life. We were like really crazy, just doing whatever, working in bars, dancing and modeling. I mean, looking back, we did some crazy stuff where we're like, don't do that again, go in a limo, like limo just stop and, hey, you girls, you want to go uptown? We're like, yeah, sure. But I always felt that I was protected. That was just always an angel, people on our side, and I never did anything by myself. I would have not done that alone. So it was good to have another girl that is also smart, we would look out for one another, and if something felt a little bit
Yeah.
iffy, we're like, all right, we got to go, you
Yeah.
know. I mean, it was obviously a very big shift. Americans to me always seemed so much more relaxed. Germans can be very rigid and, very serious and complain all the time, and I'm like, oh my god. I love the American spirit. It's just, yeah, Americans work really hard too, but they also have a lot of sense of humor, and they just know how to enjoy life.
Mm. So fascinating.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so you come to the US, you're like, all right, I'm home. So sorry, mom and dad, not coming back to Germany. You had a successful career in Hollywood and are a rock star, a real rock star, which is so cool. Pinch me, I know Jacqueline. Um,
He's so cute. Thank you.
you were like living the American dream, and it seems like everything is going really well. And I'm there's trials and tribulations everywhere, every stage of life. But then your dad, does he get sick? How did his passing happen?
While I lived in New York, I flew my parents out quite a bit, traveling with me, like to New Orleans. We went to
Oh,
Miami. We did like cool vacations, obviously New York. Then I moved to LA, And I really wanted my parents to come out, but it somehow didn't work out. And my dad started talking about, my mom would tell me that my dad didn't feel good. My dad would always say, I'm fine, I'm fine. He was a very grumpy kind of, he would just say, I'll give you mom real quick, So it's like, my mom was like, what? Real quick? Like, you just talked to her for like 10 minutes and I have to hurry up. She was telling me that he's not well. And I was just thinking, all right, maybe she's over exaggerating, because dad is like, he's fine. And she's like, well, he's not eating and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Dad, what's going on? And he's like, I'm fine, I'm fine. And then it became a little bit more serious. And I said, well, there's alternatives. Maybe you can find an alternative doctor, maybe we can like look for an expert. He had problems with his liver. And he was like, well, I can't afford. I'm like, you can't afford not to, But anyway, he was really stubborn. And I had booked a flight to visit my dad in February, early February. And my mom called me and she's like, your dad is dying. And I was like, no way, stop. She's like, no, seriously, you have to come right now. I don't know how. I got on a flight within the next 5 hours. I got a flight. God. It took forever. Everything just felt so heavy and so hard because I got there. I was in the plane. My uncle was supposed to pick me up, and there was so much miscommunication. It took forever to get to my dad. I think I spent 12 hours, 14 hours getting there. And when I got home, he was already in a coma. And I hardly recognized him because he was so skinny. He didn't even look like my dad. And, but he waited for me. He was waiting for me. And so I went and held his hand, and I could tell like a little tear. It was just so beautiful and sad at the same time. The three of us, I'm the only child. So my mom was on the one side, I was on the other side, and I would just tell him, I'm like, thank you so much for waiting. And he also wasn't ever really like this, I love you. He was not very open. Yeah. In his later years, he was. But I just told him, how much I love him and that it's okay to go. He can go. And I think we held his hand for hours, and then finally we were just so tired, and then he passed. He passed shortly after. And that I didn't even know. The guy that came to pick him up, we called, and the guy that came to pick him up, I knew him, and it was just, I just felt numb. That's all I could. I was just like, this is not happening. I don't know who they carrying out of my house right now. This is not my dad. Yeah. And my mom was a wreck, even though she was obviously aware of that he's not going to make it. I took care of my mom for the few days I was there, just like handling some logistics and stuff, and just trying to be there for her. And then I went back to LA. I had a meeting the same day I came back, and I had a show the same night.
Oh my gosh.
Because I said my dad would want me to play the show. It was a big show too, and all these people came with cards, and I just couldn't stand it. Oh. Because it hurt so much. I was like, please don't remind me. Like, I can't deal with that right now. I just want to be on stage. And then I think in one song, it's called Angels, and I kind of lost it, but I did it. And I kept thinking, I had a hard time crying my entire life. And so I was on stage in front of people, and I'm singing the song, and all I'm thinking is my dad. And I'm like, Dad, I miss you so much. Can you see me? Because he was a musician, and he was so proud of me. Like, he was proud of me, and at the same time being like, you need to sing better. He was always like getting on my nerves, like people would get into arguments because he was always like, you didn't study music. How could you even write a song? You didn't study music. I study music. I'm like, well, you haven't written your own song. Yeah, we had a funny relationship. But he was a grumpy guy for sure, and people fully took advantage of that when he would be on stage. But yeah, I played that show, and I thought of Dad, and then the grieving, I guess, began, but the grieving for me. And so the crazy part is that the flight I had booked to see my dad was his
Mm.
funeral. It was his
Oh,
freaking funeral. Yeah. That I had booked months ahead of time, you know?
just to go back, a
Yeah.
normal
Yeah.
visit
Because
with
I
family.
told him, I'm like, Dad, I'm coming soon. So everything will be fine. We'll figure this thing out, you know? Because again,
So
he acted like he was fine.
I'm fine, right?
I'm fine. That was my dad, you know? I'm fine. And I was definitely numb. I remember the funeral. I was like, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't want to be here. I don't
Hmm.
want to be here.
Yep.
So yeah, people would just, you know, shake my hand and do whatever. And I was just like, oh God, when is this over? I hated it.
It's the worst.
And my mom was deeply, she likes wine to begin with. And that was all she was doing. So it
Mm.
was really hard to watch her. I didn't know how I could really support her. You know, she'd be like, "Oh my God, is Dad cold? He must be cold." You know, and I'm like, "Mom, he got cremated, and he's not cold anymore." You know, and so and then why this why him why him?
Mhm.
And I was just trying to be there for my mom. I always thought I have to have all the answers. It's like, Mom, he's in a better place now. He's fine. It's his soul is still here. He's here. It's just his body, you know? And I'm like, who am I to talk about? You know, I don't know. That was just my way of dealing with it and have her understand it, but it was really hard. The first grieving phase for me was numbness.
Mhm.
And then I would once in a while see someone play the saxophone and just burst into tears because my dad was playing the saxophone. I'm like, oh, Dad's here, you know? And then I would get really angry because I'm like, why did he not listen to me? You know, why did he not try to find
The alternative
the
doctor.
alternative doctor or anything to get help? And then I think at some point it was acceptance. I was feeling also really guilty that I always put my music first. That I was like, oh, I'm too busy. I can't make it right now. I need to work on my music. I have shows booked, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, God, I should have been there for my dad. I should have listened to my mom and go there sooner, you know? And I
Mhm.
didn't do that
Mhm.
because I just didn't think it was that serious.
But I think that that's something that so many kids who have parents who are ill, who don't live in the same town or nearby, on the phone, it's always like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine. And it's a different story when you get
Yeah.
there. So,
That's my one regret. Now I always feel family comes first. Everything else can wait.
hmm
If someone tells you, your mom says your dad is not well and your dad is like, I'm good, don't believe your dad, just believe your mom. You
yeah,
know, yeah.
yeah. And go and see for yourself, right? That's such
Yeah.
a valuable, nugget to take away of
Hmm.
you never know until you're there and you can
Yeah.
experience it yourself.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh my gosh. And I think it's so beautiful that he waited. He waited for
I
you.
know. I know. I was so glad he did.
So after your dad passed, you were with your mom for a couple days and then you went back to the States. Um, and we're doing your shows and then you came back for his funeral. And then how is it supporting your mom who was on her own grief journey when you went back to the States and you were no longer there, physically to give her hugs or anything like that? How was that
Hmm.
for you?
Well, we would talk pretty much every day. I mean, we still talk every day, pretty much. I was really trying to just to listen instead of being the one always giving advice and having an answer, you
Hmm.
know, because I felt I have to have the answer. I have to be the strong one, you know, and I got to be the tough one. And I mean, it was weird because I didn't even really cry during the funeral. A little, of course, I was crying a little bit, but I couldn't. It was weird. And then my dad's brother, we had a little coffee cake thing after the funeral. And my dad's brother looks so much like my dad. And
Oh,
as like, I just kept staring at him. And that's when I started tearing up more. I was just thinking, there was still a part of my dad there. It was not easy because my mom would just drink, she would, that was her coping, just wash it, flush it away. And I was trying to not preach, but be like, Mom, you got to be, I was really worried about her. That's all she did every day, every night. She was alone in the house. And at some point, then I flew her out. We met up in New York. We spent the Christmas together. And that was one thing I always said too. I'm like, we're going to spend every Christmas together, which is funny. This year we are not. I changed my priorities, to make my family, my mom. I'm the only child, like I said. And to make sure that I'm there for her, and she has also friends. She has her brother is there. That was really helpful. But it's hard. How do you tell someone stop drinking so much? When the minute you say that, they're gonna do even more. They're grieving, and that's her only way. And then I said, maybe you could try to journal. Maybe find little things that could distract you other than just drinking. And sitting here and wondering and asking why, because that was her main thing that she would always do. Why? And it was hard for me to find an answer other than, I don't know, but, try to appreciate it. And again, they had a really rough marriage. So for a long time, he was just not a nice husband. He put her through a lot. And then, but the end of the last 5-10 years, he was just a bit more, calmer and not so crazy anymore, which was nice. And eventually, Mom found someone new. It was kind of adorable because she was like, I met this person, and would you mind? I'm like, why would I mind? Why would I mind? I'm so glad you found someone, That was really great because obviously she would always, this little guilt, like, of course I love your dad. I'm like, Mom, you don't have to explain this to me. I understand, I think a lot of people that lose someone feel really guilty when they want to move on. And my mom's never been one who can be alone. And she was alone for 2 years. And she met this guy, Dieter, and he was just, in a way, it was weird because I said to her several times, I'm like, maybe Dad made room for you to have someone who really loved you, unconditional. And because he treated her like a queen, Dieter, her new boyfriend. Yeah. He was just such a sweet guy. My mom likes to talk a lot. Dieter was very calm and quiet and gobby line, just like be so cute and like always like pinch her booty or this like, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, okay guys, can you wait till I'm leaving? It's a little weird. But that was, I think, and at that point I was also allowing myself to just be okay. It's okay to grieve, and it's okay to cry, and it's okay to even let things out. But I was really, the anger phase was not nice because I was just, well, he was a bad man anyway. It was weird. I was like, who's talking? Grieving is really weird.
Yeah.
Because
there's so many facets of it.
So many. Long story short, Mom and Dieter, they were together for like 12. She sold a house. They moved in together. And my mom got sick. My mom had cancer. She had in her throat a little tumor. And so another really following your intuition, right? Like I went to Germany for 3 months. And I told my mom, she came to visit me in June 2019. And I said, I'm going to come and visit you with my dog this time. Because I always said I'm going to come with my dog, Bolt. But I could never do it because I never had time. And I said, this time I'm just going to come. I'm going to make the time. I'm going to spend 3 months. Then she was like, 3 months? That's a long time. I'm like, don't worry. I'm going to go visit my friends and I'm not going to just stay with you. A month later, my mom, while she was visiting me, she was already saying her throat was hurting. And then she went back to Germany. And a month before I was leaving, she said, Jacqueline, I have cancer. I have to actually go in a hospital. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And that was 2 days before I flew out.
Oh my gosh.
Could have not planned that. Yeah, could have not planned that better because I rented out my apartment. Everything aligned. And then COVID happened. It's crazy. We couldn't do anything anyway. I told my mom, I'm going to stay. So she couldn't talk. She couldn't eat or drink on her own. She had a track in her throat.
Oh, yeah.
It was painful. And her boyfriend, Dieter, was so worried, because he was 12 years younger. And he was like, oh, I'm so worried. And he was really scared of taking care of her. And like, it reminded him of his mom, and she got really sick. He's like, I don't know if I can deal with this and handle this. I'm like, we got this. All the things I ended up doing, like vacuuming out her throat. I cannot stand anything medical. And I was becoming her nurse, and I learned how to just get her food set up with the bags, and hook everything up. It was 7 months later, she was finally able to speak. And because I said, I'm not leaving till we have coffee and the conversation. And that's what happened. Thankfully, she is really good now. She's doing great. She had all her tests and they said everything is good. And then Dieter got really sick and was in a coma for, I think, almost 6 months.
Oh my gosh.
And I was not able to go. He had so many issues. He had so many medications. I'm not a big fan of Big Pharma because I feel they just give you medication, and what fixes one thing destroys something else, and I think he was taking 12 pills a day, 3 times a day, something crazy like that. And so he kept gaining water, and so he was in a coma. Then he came back out. He was getting a little bit better, and I felt so bad because I wasn't able to go and visit her at the time. And so she had to deal with all that on her own. I think 6 months later, he just collapsed. The crazy part is he had hemorrhoids. I don't know if that's weird to talk about, and they operated. He walked into the office. The doctor should have seen that he was pretty much in really bad shape, and he still operated on him. So Dieter went back home. He tried to fix the couch, and he collapsed and died right in front of her. Oh so that was freaking traumatic for my mom. I mean, even though she knew that he was really sick, he was really ill, but she didn't expect that, And that was really, my dad was really traumatic for her, but that was even more traumatic for her because he just suddenly dropped dead in front of her. And also she really loved him. I think that was really the love of her life. That was hard. Because once again, the wine started pouring more. I mean, they always enjoyed having drinks, and at some point I was just, what are you going to do?
And you're not there?
I'm not there, and I can't. And I could tell on the phone when she would have drinks, and I'm like, I would mention it. And then at some point I said, just shut up, Jacqueline. Just shut up. Stop trying to control your mom. Just trying to point it out, because what does it matter? And then she'd be, I know, I didn't drink anything. And I'm like,
you're like,
okay. And again, why? Why him? Why him? I finally found the man. Why him? And there was just so many other aspects. And for me, once again, I was just numb. I was like, I cannot believe she lost Dieter. And with it, then the family, it's also crazy how shitty people can be because they never signed anything. And so in Germany, if you don't have anything written in paper, she had to move out of the house eventually because his family, his brothers, they pretty much got a lawyer to get her out of the house. And he always would say, my brothers, they would never do anything like that. Because she said, well, I don't really have anything if something happens to you, and they always talked about it. It's an uncomfortable thing, to talk about what happens when you die, who write a will that the house goes to me, whatever. So none of that was in writing. And his brothers did exactly what he never expected. And it got really ugly and even more painful because now my mom, not only
she's grieving the loss.
She's grieving the loss, and then she the one thing that she could hang on to. But I started telling her, I said, listen, yes, you could get a lawyer, and you could, and she had a lawyer, but I said you could fight over the house and try to make this happen. But this is also affecting your health, your mental well-being, and also in that house she was sick. So a lot of bad things happened in that house, and there were like really steep stairs. And I was like, man, you like to have your vino and then you go downstairs at night to go to the bathroom because you had to go down those stairs. It always made me feel really not good.
Yeah.
So eventually she came to terms with the fact that, okay, I have to let this house go. And I said, if you let this house go, you can also let the painful memory of seeing him here dying in front of you in the living room go, because she would always sit there and then say, my Dieter right here, he passed,
Oh.
and it was, again, I would try to be so have the answers, but then also say, Mom, I really don't know, and just give her a hug, and she would just burst out into tears and look at that was a big picture, and she still has that picture that she would kiss every night and talk to him and ask him why. And it's just so heartbreaking to watch someone go through that and not really knowing, and then I would ask her, like, maybe you could find a community to be part of. And so she started going to church. And as a kid, I always liked going to church because, not that I actually was allowed to go to church in East Germany. You weren't allowed to go to church. Well, we weren't. But we had churches, but I always was intrigued by it. And I said to her, I know you don't believe in God or anything like that, but just go for the community. Just go for the perspective to maybe, but she's like, well, if there's a God, why would he take my Dieter? Why would he do that?
Yeah.
And again, I'm like, I don't have that answer necessarily, but he was not well. And in a way, is this better for you to not worry every night if you have to call 911 again, to get him to a hospital, or him just finally, his body saying, I've had it, and now he can rest in peace. And it's even that answer, when I said that, it sounded so shitty.
Yeah.
But it's the only way I could make sense of it.
Yeah. And it's hard to make sense, right? I think sometimes just sitting and being present is such a gift too.
And I like what you've mentioned several times in this podcast with previous guests, where they talked about talking about them, keeping them alive. And I think I try to avoid that sometimes, where she's just, about that. So now I actually sometimes ask her, like, she goes to the cemetery like every Sunday, sometimes twice a week, and brings the flowers, talks to him. And I used to just be like, and now I get it. I'm like, you know what? If that's what makes her happy, just go and talk to him, just go to Dad first, then go to Dieter. And my grandmother is there too. And so she has someone else. She found another man because she doesn't like to be alone. And I think there's nothing wrong with it. And she always says to me, she's like, Court is a lot of fun. Dieter is my love, And I said, that's fine. You can love Dieter. That's okay. You don't have to forget about him.
And a meaningful part of her life. Yeah. Right. And talking about him is okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then also being, okay with a new chapter of her life.
Yeah, she's got her own apartment. So she moved into an apartment, and at first she was really not happy about that. And then everybody kept telling her, this is your place. You can decorate it any way you want. And now she loves it because she's in an apartment building. So she has neighbors and she loves to talk. She's very social. So she has friends. She plays cards once a week with friends, and she goes to church. She loves it now. They do like little art projects, and the pastor, he goes to all these trips, and then he comes back and talks about the trips. So she enjoys all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. She's like, I might go to church again. And then she goes to work out a little bit. And I think all of these things really help her to cope with her grief that she still very much has, because when I was there, like I hung the picture up of Dieter, and then she would still talk to him, and she still likes her wine. At this point, it's who she is. And I just happy she is doing good. And she's having a lot of fun. She has another friend that they go on little adventures. So I love that too, because like she's changed so much, because now she's cracking up and she's laughing so hard, where it's like, who is this woman, But she's like, oh my God, my friend and I, we went to this bar, not bar, like cafes and stuff. And she's like, oh my God, we ate so much, blah, blah. And so and then they talk jokes. And so I'm happy for her. She's come. The entire time with my dad, she was not like that, And then with Dieter, she was. But like now she's even more there's a different part of her. I think she's grown a lot from
Mhm.
the loss and found herself again. My mom is not a person who is she doesn't like silence. She doesn't like to spend time with herself, which I
Mm.
think, I try to always be like, just in the morning, just meditate or like, but that now she has a little journal. She writes like every day. What I got her to do that. Now she likes it. She's like, oh, I'm just journaling. I'm just writing what I did today, and then she also really likes to get dressed. So she dresses like 3 times. She changes her clothes 3 times a day, which I think is so crazy. But now that I'm not gonna lie, as a child, sometimes we just want to control our parents, right? We like become the parent. We're like, don't do that. And I'm like, Mom, you could just like sit in front of the TV with your sweatpants on and a nice sweater. She's like, no, I like to get dressed up. Who am I to argue? And then Tony Robbins, no, Lewis House, he said it. He said, we have all this beautiful clothes in our closet and we wait for that special occasion. But why not just wear it when you feel like it? I'm like, my mom might be onto something. Glam up anyway.
I love that, and I feel like she has not overcome, but she's moved through such such heartbreak in her life. And I even was hearing Anderson Cooper talking about this last week, I think, where you can't experience pure joy until you've experienced deep grief. And
Mm,
they come together. If everyone was happy all the time, would you know that you were happy? Or would it just be like, oh,
right.
this is normal?
Mm,
So by her going through those experiences with both your dad and Dieter, she had that joyful, childlike, smitten, love. She liked it, right? And now it sounds as though she's looking for that in all aspects of life. That's such a gift. Such a
well, she
gift.
was adorable when she was here. She was in my RV for the summer. She is afraid to fly. Turns out she's not afraid to fly. She actually is. She's afraid of the airport. When we flew together, she's like, "Oh, Jackie, I just love when we like start taking off." I'm like, "What? This is what most people are scared." She's like, "No, no, I just don't like the airport. It's too big
Uh,
and it freaks me out." So I promised her that if she flies nonstop to New York, I'll pick her up and then I'll fly back with her. So when we flew back to Germany, it was so funny when she spent the time with me here. I was like, Mom, you want to help a little? Like she was like, oh, like sitting there like a little queen. I'm like, this woman is being spoiled now and she deserves it. She was like, oh, I don't want to be in your way or anything like that. I'm like, okay.
oh,
And so, yeah, and you know what? When I look back again, like I remember being a child and my parents going at each other. And it was when, we both taken the Kathy Heller course and like we doing some deep dives into our childhood. And I didn't realize that I had a lot of trauma that I never really
mm,
confronted. I would just always, I guess I'm a little bit of an avoider, because I was just like, whatever, the whole neighborhood heard what was going on. I was actually intervening, like I was standing, I woke up and I'm like, do they know I'm here? Do they know they have a child that is listening to all of this and maybe getting traumatized by what is being said and done? And at some point I got up and stood in front of my dad while he was like going at my mom. And I was like, I hate you. Stop. And I remember him just going pale,
mm,
just didn't even know what to do. I think there was a lot of alcohol involved and, jealousy and all kinds of craziness. But so I feel like when I look at her now and I'm like, man, you've gone through so much shit. You
yeah.
deserve this. You deserve to be treated like a queen. So now she gets her nails done. She gets her hair done. She gets, facials. She's like, oh, Jackie, I have such a busy week this week. I have to get my nails done. Then I have to go to a hairdresser. I'm like, oh God, your life is just crazy. You're just so bombarded with like stressful things. Yeah. And then I have to go play cards and I have to visit my neighbors. So she's always busy. And I think I always thought that busyness is a form of avoidance also. But if that's
Mhm.
her way of coping with things,
Yeah.
So I feel that I love watching her bloom now and come to life and be silly and just enjoy life,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of people don't.
Yeah. They just,
And so I'm also happy, when she met this guy, she would just have him drive her places, she doesn't drive. And
mm,
I'm like, Mom, she's like, yeah, it's not my boyfriend or anything like that. He's just, we're just friends. I'm like, Mom, it's not nice when you just like let him drive you everywhere, and you got to invite him for coffee at least or something. And so that's how it started when I was there, and it was the holidays. And I'm like, just invite Cord over, And she's like, you sure? I don't. I'm like, yes, please. And that's what I started. And then she's like, and it's so funny too, because Dieter was so not like my dad, and this Cord guy is like nothing like either one of them. So he
completely.
loves the Rolling Stones. He has a couple of tattoos. It's so not my mom. And so it's hilarious, because their music taste is different, and he just his attitude, but it's so cool because she's just, I'm like, Mom is with a guy that has tattoos. It's hilarious. And he also tells her when she gets a little bit like in her mood, like in her little bitchy mood, like, he's like, oh, you can go home if you want. she's like, he put me in my place and I like it.
Yeah. That's
But
so
she's
great.
having a blast. Yeah. And so I think that I'm glad, because losing anyone, it's so hard. And I mean, for me, it's been my pets. I don't have, but
Mhm.
I remember even losing my cats, it took me 3 years to get over one of my cats passing, because it's
Yeah.
just such a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who, even my dog Bald is like, he's my sidekick,
Yeah.
he's my soulmate. So I'm like, I can't even imagine life without him, because we've traveled so much together, and he's helped my mom heal, and he's helped another friend of mine get over the fear of dogs. So I think that appreciate what you got, and stay in
Yeah.
the moment, because sometimes I get into that, oh my God, I hope he's okay. I don't want to lose him. But I'm like, don't even think about that. I just want to be present. And
Mm-hmm.
that's sometimes not easy, because sometimes I get into my worry mode.
Yes. I think being present is such a good tip there of just being in the moment and celebrating
Yeah.
that. And do you have any other advice or words of wisdom for listeners who may live in other countries than their loved ones? And I just love hearing how happy your mom is, and that you've been able to
Yes.
share that like joy with one another, and you get it when you're with her in person, and such a gift.
It's funny. My mom and I are, when we first get together, we bicker a lot, and we like argue a lot, because she's stuck in her ways, I'm stuck in my ways, like, "Ah." And then like a week in, we're good. It's like adjusting. It's so funny. But we had a lot of things we talked about. But I feel like when you are not together, like even the holidays, normally I want to be there for the holidays. But she came in the summer, spend time with them, whether it's FaceTiming or, once a year, it's a must for me to visit her
Mm.
for at least a month. Because somebody mentioned that once, I forget who, but when you think about how many times, let's say my mom lives another 20 years and I only visit once a year, I only see her 20 more times. That's
Yeah,
not a lot of time, you
yeah.
know? So we try to actually go like, okay, you visit me and then I come over and visit you. So we spend like twice a year, if possible, but definitely make the time, because we always say, oh yeah, we'll make it happen. And it doesn't happen. Another year goes by. So
Mm.
important. And also check in. Like we talk almost every day, even just for 5 minutes. Sometimes we're like, nothing else to say, but just, hey, what's up? How you doing? Love you. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yes.
Just checking in.
Mm-hmm. And having that person, right?
Yeah.
That's there for you. But
Yeah.
mm,
And maybe also, maybe plan a trip together. You could meet halfway somewhere. There's so
yeah,
many ways to connect, because not everybody wants to move back home. I know friends that have moved back. I have a friend in Switzerland. He moved back because his parents are getting older, and so I understand that too. But I love my life here, and she loves her life there. We do our best to like see each other at least once a year.
yeah. Mm. Well, thank you so much, Jacqueline, and thank you for being so honest and open about your experience. And I hope that you continue to process and grieve and heal as the years go by. And it's so wonderful that you're able to celebrate the joy too, and the new life and the different chapters that come after loss. I think that that's so wonderful. And it sounds like you've been a really influential light for your mom as well as she's been, processing her own grief. So
Again, everybody's different. For me, I think singing is very therapeutic. Making a playlist of songs maybe that you listen to together. My mom, and Dieter used to dance all the time. So, and now she has her new guy dancing with her. Um, but it brings her back to those memories, and also maybe journaling, which I think is really therapeutic. It's been for me when I just finally accepted it and just started writing it down, and
yeah.
also kind of analyzing a little bit, why am I so blocked, or why am I not allowing myself to grieve?
Mhm.
Because I was just kept pushing it away and just acting like, to the point where I would question myself. I'm like, am I like just a stone cold person? It still comes. Like sometimes I see someone playing a saxophone and I just burst into tears thinking, oh, my dad says hello. Or I see someone that looks like Dieter and I'm like, oh, Dieter is here. So it's just being in gratitude and just hoping for the best. I try not to worry, which is not always easy.
Yeah.
But I try not to think about, even when my mom brings up, oh, when I die, I want this. I'm like, oh God, I can't. Mom, don't talk to me about that. But I understand it's important, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
And because she went through that with Dieter, she wants to make sure that you know what her wishes are,
yeah,
which,
yeah,
yeah, it's I've
yeah.
often thought about, doing a workshop with my husband and saying like, okay, for all of our friends who, need to do this, you don't want to have the conversation, so let's
Yeah,
just rip the Band-Aid off and do it all together at the same time. It's
yeah,
doing it in community, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Um,
uncomfortable,
yeah.
Nobody wants to think about that or talk about that, which I get, but I
Yeah.
also understand that it's important.
They're
I
so
mean, I even think about that. I'm like, oh God, if what something happens to me, nobody has access to my crypto. I should write it down somewhere and,
yeah.
share it. I mean, we're not promised tomorrow. Nobody is. It doesn't matter how old or how young you are, things happen, and it's good to be prepared. And it's something that I need to work on because I
I think we all do. It's okay. Start where we are. We have
Yes.
today. So
Yes. Yeah.
one small step that we can do to help prepare our loved ones.
Yeah.
Let's we'll start
That's
where
all
we
we
are.
can do.
Well, oh, well, thank you so much, Jacqueline. If for listeners who would like to connect with you or get more involved with you, you have a podcast and you're also a musician. So how can they find you?
The best way to find me is on pinkstarmusic.com. I'm on social media. I'm either Pinkstar or Jacqueline van Bierk or her Gypsy Rebel. I have many names. I'm doing actually a workshop starting in January where I'll do 30-day challenges, like to declutter, to love yourself again, self confidence. But all the information is going to be on pinkstarmusic.com. It's all about empowering and inspiring people to just live their best life and be a rebel, be a gypsy, and live life on your own terms.
I love that. And Jacqueline, thank you so much for being an editor of this podcast. It's been such a joy to have you behind the scenes, and I'm so grateful for you and for everything that you've helped out with. You are a really great clutter cheerleader. So I'm excited, and
Yes.
we'll put all the information in the show notes as well, so people can connect with you. But thank you again, and sending so much love to you and your mom.
Mm.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. You are such a light as well, and I love what you're doing. And I've learned so much because of you. It's helped me a lot also.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Giving Grief Grace. If you found the content interesting and think it could help a friend or a loved one, please share it with them. Subscribe to this podcast and get a weekly dose of positivity. And while you're at it, please leave a review. If you enjoyed the show and want to support me financially on my grief journey, I'm raising funds for Project Purple, a nonprofit whose mission is to see a world without pancreatic cancer. If you've lost a loved one and are looking for support in an online community, consider joining our free private Facebook group, Giving Grief Grace. May you be kind to yourself in the week ahead and give yourself grace. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.